Hey there, reader. If you're loving this journey into a story of family, secrets, and second chances, don't miss a single chapter. Hit that subscribe button to follow along as we unravel the truth together. Your support keeps these tales coming. Chicago, April 2025. The newsroom buzzed with the usual chaos. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and the faint hum of a coffee machine that never quit. Sarah Harper sat at her desk, surrounded by stacks of notes and a glowing computer screen. At 32, she was one of the youngest investigative reporters at the Chicago Tribune, with a reputation for sniffing out stories others missed. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her hazel eyes scanned an article draft, but her mind was elsewhere. It always was. This time of year, April, was when her mom left. 20 years ago, almost to the day, Ellen Harper walked out on Sarah, her little brother Ben, and their dad Tom back in their small Ohio town. Sarah was 12 then, old enough to feel the sting of betrayal but too young to understand it. All she had left of her mom was a single memory, a soft voice singing lullabies, and a crumpled note that read, "I have to go. I'm sorry." The note was still tucked in her wallet, a reminder of the hole in her heart. Sarah shook her head, pushing the memory down. She didn't have time for ghosts. Her latest story, a deep dive into city corruption, was due tomorrow, and her editor was breathing down her neck. But as she opened her inbox to check for a source's email, a new message caught her eye. No subject line, no sender name, just a timestamp, 10:47 p.m. She hesitated, then clicked. The email was short, just a single line above a grainy photo. Clara Wells, Maine. The image showed a woman, maybe in her 50s, standing outside a small art gallery. She had gray-streaked blonde hair, a gentle smile, and eyes that looked familiar. Too familiar. Sarah's breath caught. The woman's face was older, weathered by time. But those eyes, they were her mom's eyes. Her hands shook as she zoomed in on the photo. It couldn't be. Ellen Harper had vanished without a trace. No calls, no letters, nothing. Sarah had spent years searching, scouring social media, digging through public records, even hiring a private investigator once. Every lead went cold. Her dad said Ellen was probably gone for good. Maybe even dead. But this woman, this Clara Wells, she had Ellen's eyes, her mom's eyes, the ones Sarah saw in her dreams. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her heart pounding. The newsroom noise faded, replaced by a rush of memories. Her mom braiding her hair before school. Her mom laughing at Ben's silly jokes. Her mom packing a suitcase one night, thinking Sarah was asleep. That last memory always hurt the most. Sarah had watched from the crack of her bedroom door, too scared to ask why. She grabbed her phone and dialed Ben. It rang 3 times before he picked up, his voice muffled by the thump of music in the background. "Yo, Sarah, what's up? I'm in the middle of a set. Ben, I need you to listen." Sarah's voice was tight. "I just got an email. It's about Mom." The music faded as Ben stepped outside, probably into the alley behind whatever dive bar his band was playing tonight. 28. Ben was the opposite of Sarah, laid back, always chasing the next gig with his guitar, never sweating the small stuff. But his tone sharpened. "What do you mean about Mom?" Sarah swallowed. "There's a photo. A woman in Maine. She looks like her, Ben. Like really looks like her." A long pause. "Sarah, we've been down this road before. Remember that lady in Florida? Or the one in Seattle? You get your hopes up, and..." "This is different," she snapped. "I'm sending you the email. Look at her eyes." She forwarded the message and waited, hearing Ben's phone ping. Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Okay. Yeah. That could be her. What's the plan?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "I'm going to Maine. Tomorrow. I need to know if it's her. Tomorrow." Ben laughed, but it was nervous. "Sis, you don't even know where in Maine. And I've got gigs all week." "Then cancel them," she said. "Ben, this is Mom. If there's even a chance, don't you want to know?" He sighed, the kind of sigh that meant he was already giving in. "Fine. But I'm driving. Your road rage scares me." Sarah almost smiled. "Deal. Pick me up at 7 a.m. And Ben? Don't tell Dad." "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because he gave up on her years ago," she said, her voice hard. "I haven't." She hung up and stared at the photo again. Clara Wells, Maine. The words felt like a puzzle she was born to solve. Sarah didn't know if she was chasing answers or closure, but one thing was sure. She wasn't letting this go. Back in 2005, the Harper House in Millfield, Ohio was a different world. It was a modest two-story with creaky floors, a front porch swing, and a kitchen that always smelled like coffee. Sarah sat at the dining table, her math homework spread out, while Ellen helped her solve fractions. Ellen's blonde hair was tied back, and her smile was warm, but her eyes looked tired, like she was carrying something heavy. "Mom, why do you keep looking out the window?" Sarah asked, pencil hovering over her notebook. Ellen blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, just checking the weather." "Sweetie, looks like rain." But Sarah wasn't convinced. Her mom had been jumpy lately, always locking the doors, always glancing over her shoulder. That night, after Sarah went to bed, she heard footsteps. Peeking through her door, she saw Ellen in the hallway, zipping up a suitcase. Sarah's heart raced. She wanted to run out to ask where her mom was going, but fear glued her to the spot. By morning, Ellen was gone, and all that was left was the note on the kitchen counter. Tom found it first. He read it silently, his face crumpling, then tucked it into his pocket before Sarah and Ben woke up. When Sarah saw it later, snatched from her dad's dresser, the words burned into her brain. "I have to go. I'm sorry." No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. Now in her Chicago apartment, Sarah packed a duffel bag, jeans, a few sweaters, her laptop, and the note still folded in her wallet. The city lights glittered outside her window, but her mind was already in Maine. She didn't know what she'd find. Maybe Clara Wells was just a lookalike. Maybe Ellen was long gone, like her dad believed. Or maybe, just maybe, her mom was out there, waiting to be found. Sarah zipped her bag and checked her phone. Then had texted, "Car's ready. See you at 7. Don't bring your grumpy face." She rolled her eyes but felt a flicker of gratitude. Ben was a pain sometimes, but he was her brother, the only one who understood what it was like to grow up with a ghost for a mom. As she lay in bed, the photo of Clara Wells burned behind her eyelids. Those eyes, that smile. Sarah didn't know if she wanted to hug her mom or scream at her. Maybe both. All she knew was that tomorrow, she was hitting the road, chasing a truth that had been buried for 20 years. The Chicago skyline faded in the rearview mirror as Ben's beat-up Honda Civic cruised east on I-90. It was 7:15 a.m., and the morning sun glinted off the windshield, painting the road in shades of gold. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, her duffel bag at her feet, scrolling through her phone for any clue about Clara Wells, Maine. So far, nothing. Just a website for an art gallery in a place called Rockport, with no mention of Clara. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Stop stressing," Ben said, one hand on the wheel, the other fiddling with the radio. At 28, he looked like he'd just rolled out of a gig. Messy brown hair, a faded Led Zeppelin t-shirt, and a grin that said he didn't take much seriously. "We've got, 15 hours to Maine. Plenty of time to overthink." Sarah shot him a look. "I'm not overthinking. I'm researching. You should try it sometime." Ben chuckled, settling on a classic rock station. "Springsteen's My Hometown," crackled through the speakers. And for a second, Sarah's mind drifted back to their Ohio childhood. Her dad blasting the same song on Sunday drives. Her mom humming along in the front seat. She pushed the memory away. Nostalgia wasn't going to help her find Ellen. "So," Ben said, glancing at her, "you really think this Clara lady is Mom? I mean, it's been 20 years, Sarah. People change." "She has Mom's eyes," Sarah said firmly. "You saw the photo. It's not just a coincidence." Ben shrugged, but his grip on the wheel tightened. "Maybe. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Angry? Excited? What if we get there and it's not her? Or worse, what if it is?" Sarah didn't answer right away. She'd spent years wrestling with those questions. Part of her wanted to find Ellen and demand answers. Why she left, why she never came back. Another part, smaller and quieter, just wanted her mom to hug her again. "I don't know either," she admitted. "But I can't keep wondering. I need to know." Ben nodded, his usual grin fading. "Fair enough. But if we're doing this, no moping the whole way. Deal." "Deal," Sarah said, managing a half smile. "But you're buying the coffee." The first few hours passed in a blur of highway signs and gas station stops. They grabbed breakfast burritos at a truck stop in Indiana, where Ben flirted with the cashier and Sarah rolled her eyes. By noon, they were cutting through Pennsylvania, the landscape shifting from flat fields to rolling hills. The radio played a mix of rock and country, but when Ben started singing along to Sweet Home Alabama, Sarah groaned. "You're gonna scare the deer," she said, tossing a granola bar wrapper at him. "Hey, my voice is a gift," Ben shot back, winking. "You're just jealous you can't hit those high notes." Sarah snorted, but she was grateful for his goofiness. Ben had always been the one to lighten the mood, even when things got heavy. Growing up after Ellen left, their dad, Tom, buried himself in work at the auto shop, leaving Sarah and Ben to lean on each other. Sarah became the responsible one, getting straight A's and keeping the house running. Ben was the dreamer, strumming his guitar and sneaking out to gigs. They fought like siblings do, but they were a team. "Remember that time you tried to run away?" Ben said suddenly, his eyes on the road. "You were, what, 14? Packed a backpack and made it all the way to the bus station." Sarah laughed despite herself. "Yeah, I was gonna find Mom. Thought I could track her down like some detective. Dad was so mad when he dragged me home." "He wasn't mad," Ben said. "He was scared. Kept saying he couldn't lose you too." The words hung in the air heavy. Sarah looked out the window, watching trees blur by. "He gave up on her, Ben. Dad stopped looking after a year. Said she didn't want to be found. Maybe he was just protecting us," Ben said quietly. "You ever think about that?" Sarah didn't answer. She didn't want to think about their dad right now. Tom was a good father, but he'd built a wall around his heart after Ellen left. He never talked about her, never cried, just kept going. Sarah had inherited that stubbornness, but it came with a price. Anger that simmered under the surface, ready to boil over. They stopped for lunch at a diner outside Erie, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and pie under glass domes. Sarah ordered a burger, Ben got pancakes, and they sat in a booth by the window, the highway humming outside. The waitress, a woman with a gray ponytail, called them Han and refilled their coffee without asking. "Okay, serious question," Ben said, drowning his pancakes in syrup. "If it's Mom, what do you say to her? Like first words out of your mouth?" Sarah poked at her fries. "I don't know. Maybe why? Or how could you? What about you?" Ben thought for a moment, chewing. "I'd probably just ask if she's okay. Sounds dumb, but I always wondered if she was happy, you know? Wherever she went." Sarah stared at him, surprised. Ben's softness caught her off guard sometimes. She'd spent so long being mad at Ellen, she hadn't considered what her mom's life might have been like. Was she running from something? Hiding? Or had she just stopped loving them? "That's not dumb," Sarah said finally. "It's you." Ben grinned. "See? I'm deep. You just don't give me credit." She kicked him under the table. And they both laughed, the tension easing. But as they paid the bill and headed back to the car, Sarah's mind churned. The photo of Clara Wells was still on her phone, and every time she looked at it, her stomach twisted. Those eyes. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were driving toward something bigger than answers. Something that might change everything. By late afternoon, they were in upstate New York, the hills giving way to dense forests. The radio signal faded, so Ben plugged in his phone, playing a playlist of old favorites. Tom Petty, The Eagles, a little Nirvana for Sarah. As Heart of Gold filled the car, Ben's voice turned serious. "You ever think about what Mom was like before us?" he asked. "Like who she was before she was Mom?" Sarah frowned. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Just she wasn't from Millfield, right? Dad met her in Cleveland or something. She never talked about her family, her past. Don't you think that's weird?" Sarah hadn't thought about it much. To her, Ellen was just Mom, baking cookies, reading bedtime stories, helping with homework. But Ben was right. Ellen never mentioned her parents, her childhood, anything before she married Tom. Sarah remembered asking once when she was little, and Ellen changing the subject with a smile. "Nothing worth telling, sweetie," she'd said. "Maybe she didn't have anyone," Sarah said. "Or maybe she just wanted a fresh start." "Yeah, but fresh starts don't mean you ditch your kids," Ben said, his voice sharp for the first time. He caught himself and softened. "Sorry. I wish I remembered her better." Sarah reached over, squeezing his arm. "You were 8, Ben. It's not your fault." He nodded. but his eyes stayed on the road distant. Sarah pulled out the note from her wallet, unfolding it carefully. The ink had faded, but the words were still there. I have to go. I'm sorry. She traced the letters, wondering what Ellen was thinking when she wrote them. Was she scared? Sad? Or had she already checked out, ready to leave them behind? They crossed into Maine just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in pinks and purples. Rockport was still a couple hours away, and Sarah's eyelids were heavy. Ben, fueled by energy drinks, kept driving, humming to himself. The road signs now read Augusta, Camden, Rockport. Each one felt like a step closer to the truth. Sarah leaned her head against the window, the cool glass soothing her. Ben, she said softly, whatever happens tomorrow, thanks for coming with me. He glanced at her, surprised. You kidding? No way, I'm letting you face this alone. We're Harpers. We stick together. She smiled, a real one this time. For all his jokes and guitar riffs, Ben was her rock. And as the car rolled through the dark, toward a town they'd never seen, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Clara Wells was Ellen. Maybe they'd find answers. Or maybe they'd just find each other. Rockport, Maine was like something out of a postcard. The small coastal town hugged the Atlantic, with fishing boats bobbing in the harbor and clapboard houses painted in soft pastels. It was just past 9 a.m. when Ben's Honda rolled down Main Street, the air crisp with the salty tang of the sea. Sarah stared out the window, her stomach in knots. They'd driven through the night, taking turns napping, and now they were here, wherever here was. The email had pointed them to Rockport, to Clara Wells, and to an art gallery called Seaside Brushstrokes. That was all they had. Ben parked in a lot near the harbor, stretching as he got out. His Led Zeppelin t-shirt was wrinkled, and his hair looked like it had lost a fight with a pillow. Man, I need coffee, he said, squinting at the morning sun. And maybe a map. This place is tiny. How hard can it be to find one gallery? Sarah didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on a sign across the street. Seaside Brushstrokes, open 10 a.m. The gallery was a quaint building with big windows, its walls covered in ivy. A few early tourists milled around, snapping photos of the harbor. But Sarah's focus was razor-sharp. Clara Wells was in there. Maybe Ellen. Maybe her mom. You okay? Ben asked, following her gaze. You look like you're about to storm a castle. I'm fine. Sarah lied, her voice tight. She checked her phone. 9:45 a.m. 15 minutes until the gallery opened. 15 minutes until she might see her mom for the first time in 20 years. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Ben put a hand on her shoulder. We don't have to do this right now. We can grab breakfast, scope the place out. No. Sarah cut him off. We're here. I'm not waiting. He nodded, his usual grin replaced by something softer. Al richt, sis. Together then. They crossed the street, the cobblestones uneven under their sneakers. The gallery's windows displayed paintings of the Maine coast, crashing waves, lonely lighthouses, stormy skies. Sarah stopped, her breath catching. The style felt familiar, like the sketches her mom used to doodle on napkins when Sarah was a kid. She'd forgotten that about Ellen, how she'd draw little seascapes while dinner cooked. Humming to herself. The memory hit hard, and Sarah clenched her fists. She wasn't here to reminisce. She was here for answers. At 10 sharp, the gallery door swung open, and a woman in her 60s with a warm smile stepped out, flipping the sign to open. Morning, folks, she called. Come on in if you're browsing. Sarah and Ben exchanged a glance. Showtime, Ben muttered, and they walked inside. The gallery was small but bright, with hardwood floors and walls lined with paintings. Soft classical music played in the background, and the air smelled faintly of lavender. A handful of visitors wandered through, but Sarah's eyes darted to the back, where a woman stood arranging a display. She was in her mid-50s, with gray-streaked blonde hair pulled into a loose bun. She wore a navy sweater and jeans, her movements careful, almost delicate. When she turned, Sarah froze. It was her. Ellen. Or Clara. Or whoever this woman was. The face was older, lined with years Sarah hadn't seen, but those eyes, hazel, warm, a little sad, were unmistakable. The same eyes that used to read her bedtime stories. The same eyes from the email photo. Sarah's throat tightened, and the world seemed to tilt. Ben grabbed her arm, his voice a whisper. Is that? Sarah nodded, unable to speak. She wanted to move, to say something, but her feet felt glued to the floor. All the questions she'd rehearsed. Why did you leave? How could you abandon us? Vanished. She just stared. Her mom a stranger in a stranger's life. The woman, Clara, Ellen, whoever, looked up, sensing their gaze. Her eyes met Sarah's, and for a split second, something flickered across her face. Recognition? Fear. It was gone too fast to tell. She smiled politely, the kind of smile you give a customer, and said, "Welcome. Let me know if you have any questions about the paintings." Her voice was the same. A little huskier maybe, but it was Ellen's voice. Sarah's knees wobbled and Ben steadied her, his own face pale. "You sure you're okay?" he whispered. I need air," Sarah managed, turning toward the door. She stumbled outside, the sea breeze hitting her like a slap. Ben followed, closing the door behind them. "Sarah, talk to me," he said, his voice urgent. "That's her, right? That's Mom." Sarah leaned against the gallery wall, her breath ragged. "It's her. I know it's her. But she looked at me like I was nobody." "Maybe she didn't recognize you," Ben said. "It's been 20 years. You were a kid." "She knew," Sarah snapped, her voice breaking. "I saw it in her eyes. She's hiding something, Ben. She's been here all this time, painting, living this perfect little life, while we were picking up the pieces." Ben ran a hand through his hair, looking back at the gallery. "So what do we do? Go back in? Ask her straight up?" Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. I need to think. I need to know more." Back in 2005, the Harper house was quiet, too quiet. It was the night Ellen left, and Sarah, 12 years old, lay awake in her room. She'd heard her parents arguing earlier, their voices low but sharp through the walls. Her mom said something about keeping them safe, her dad pleading, "You don't have to do this." Sarah didn't understand, but it scared her. When the house went silent, she crept to her door, peeking into the hallway. Ellen was there, a suitcase at her feet, her face wet with tears. She looked at Sarah's door, and for a moment Sarah thought her mom would come in, say it was all a mistake. But Ellen just whispered, "I'm sorry," and walked away. Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding, until she heard the front door click shut. The next morning, her dad told her and Ben that Mom was gone. "She needed some time," he said, his voice flat. Sarah didn't believe him. Moms didn't just need time. Mom stayed. Now, standing outside the gallery, Sarah pulled the note from her wallet, its edges worn from years of handling. "I have to go. I'm sorry." She'd read it 1,000 times, searching for meaning, but today it felt different. Ellen was here, alive, not 50 feet away. The note wasn't just a goodbye, it was a lie. Ben paced, his hands in his pockets. "Look, I get you're mad, but we can't just stand here. We drove 15 hours. Let's go talk to her." Sarah shook her head again. "She's not gonna tell us anything if we barge in. She's living as Clara Wells. She's got a whole new life. We need to figure out why." "So what, we play detective?" Ben asked, raising an eyebrow. "You're the reporter. What's the plan?" Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We find out who Clara Wells is, where she lives, what she does, how long she's been here. There's gotta be someone in this town who knows her." Ben nodded slowly. "Okay. But Sarah, if she's running from something, maybe she's got a reason. Don't go in guns blazing." Sarah didn't answer. She looked through the gallery window, where Ellen was talking to a customer, her smile easy, like she hadn't left a family behind. Sarah's anger flared, but underneath it was something else, fear. Fear that her mom didn't want to be found. Fear that the truth would hurt more than the wondering. "Let's go," she said, turning away. "We'll come back when I'm ready." Ben followed her down the street, the harbor sparkling behind them. Rockport was beautiful, but it felt like a trap, hiding secrets Sarah wasn't sure she could face. Still, she'd come this far. There was no turning back now. The morning sun climbed higher over Rockport, casting long shadows across Main Street. Sarah and Ben sat in a small coffee shop a block from Seaside Brushstrokes, the gallery where they'd seen their mom, or Clara Wells, whoever she was. The shop smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon rolls, and locals chatted over mugs, their voices a soft hum. Sarah barely noticed. Her coffee sat untouched, her eyes fixed on her phone as she scrolled through a sparse website for the gallery. Clara Wells was listed as a featured artist, with a bio that said she'd lived in Rockport for 15 years, painting coastal scenes. No photo, no personal details. It was like she built a life designed to disappear. Ben, munching on a bagel, leaned back in his chair. So what's the play, detective? We can't just stalk her at the gallery all day. Sarah glanced up, her jaw tight. We find out where she lives. If she's not gonna talk to us in public, we go to her. Ben raised an eyebrow. You're sounding a little intense, sis. Maybe we start with, I don't know, asking around? Someone's gotta know her. Sarah nodded, though her mind was already racing ahead. She'd spent years as a reporter tracking down leads, and this felt like the biggest story of her life. But it wasn't just a story, it was personal. Seeing her mom's face, hearing her voice, had cracked something open inside her. Anger, yes, but also a longing she hadn't let herself feel in years. They paid for their coffee and stepped outside, the sea breeze sharp against their faces. Main Street was waking up, shops opening, tourists snapping photos of the harbor. Sarah spotted a bookstore across the street, its sign reading Lila's Pages in curly script. Bookstores were gold mines for local gossip. Let's try there, she said, pointing.
Ben shrugged.
Lead the way, Sherlock. The bookstore was cozy, with floor-to-ceiling shelves and a cat curled up on a windowsill. A woman in her 60s stood behind the counter, her silver hair tied in a loose braid. She wore a colorful scarf and glasses that dangled from a chain. Welcome, she said, her smile warm. Looking for anything special? Sarah hesitated, then put on her reporter's charm. Hi, we're just visiting. Heard about an artist named Clara Wells. Know her? The woman's eyes lit up. Oh, Clara? She's a gem. Her paintings are over at Seaside Brushstrokes. Lives just outside town in a cottage by the cliffs. Quiet type but so kind. Always donates to our library fund. Sarah's pulse quickened. A cottage by the cliffs. That was something concrete. Does she come by often? She asked, keeping her tone casual. Now and then, the woman said. I'm Lila, by the way. Been running this place for 20 years. Clara's one of my favorite people to chat with, though she keeps to herself mostly. Ben jumped in, his grin easy. Sounds like she's got a story. You ever get the scoop on where she's from? Lila chuckled. You're a curious one. Clara's private, but she's mentioned moving here from up north, maybe Canada. Never says much about her past. Why the interest? Sarah and Ben exchanged a glance. Just fans of her work, Sarah said quickly. Thanks for the info, Lila. As they left, Lila called after them. Tell Clara I said hi if you see her. Outside, Sarah's mind raced. A cottage by the cliffs. Canada? That didn't add up. Ellen was from Ohio. Or at least that's what their dad said. Was Clara Wells a total reinvention? And if so, why?
Ben whistled.
Well, that was easy. Lila's like the town Wikipedia. Now what? We hunt down this cottage. Sarah nodded. Yeah, but we need to be smart. If she's hiding, she won't like us showing up unannounced. Too late for that, Ben said, half joking. You've got that look, Sarah. The one that says you're not backing down. She didn't argue. She couldn't. Not when her mom was so close. Finding the cottage wasn't hard. A quick chat with the gas station clerk pointed them to a winding road along the coast, where a handful of homes perched on rocky cliffs. By noon, they were parked near a small, weathered cottage with blue shutters and a garden full of wildflowers. A mailbox read C. Wells. Smoke curled from the chimney, and a bike leaned against the porch. Someone was home. Sarah's heart thudded as they approached the door. Ben hung back, his hands in his pockets. You sure about this? He asked. Once we knock, there's no going back. I'm sure, Sarah said, though her voice shook. She raised her fist and knocked, the sound sharp in the quiet. Footsteps came from inside and the door opened. There she was, Ellen Clara, their mom. Close. The years showed more clearly. Fine lines around her eyes, a slight stoop to her shoulders. But her face was the same, softer than Sarah remembered, and those hazel eyes locked onto hers. For a moment no one spoke. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her voice polite but guarded. The same voice from the gallery, the same voice from Sarah's childhood. Sarah's anger surged, drowning her fear. "You're Ellen Harper," she said, her tone accusing. "You're my mom." The woman's face paled, her hand gripping the doorframe. "You're mistaken," she said, but her voice wavered. "My name is Clara Wells." "Stop lying," Sarah snapped, stepping closer. "I'm Sarah. This is Ben. We know it's you. You left us 20 years ago. And now you're here, pretending you're someone else?" Ben put a hand on Sarah's arm, his voice low. "Easy, sis." The woman, Ellen, looked at Ben and her eyes softened just for a second. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. But the words sounded hollow. "Please, you need to leave." "Leave?" Sarah's voice broke. "You left us. You walked out, left a stupid note and never looked back. We deserve to know why." Ellen's gaze dropped to the floor, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and Sarah's heart twisted. Those were the words from the note, the words she'd hated for 20 years. Ben stepped forward, his voice gentle. "Mom, if it's you, just tell us. We're not kids anymore. Whatever happened, we can handle it." Ellen's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. "You don't understand. You can't be here. It's not safe." "Not safe?" Sarah scoffed. "What does that even mean? You owe us the truth." "Please," Ellen said, her voice breaking. "Go. I'm begging you." Before Sarah could argue, Ellen shut the door, the lock clicking into place. Sarah stared at it, her chest heaving. She wanted to pound on the door, to scream until Ellen came back. But Ben pulled her away. "Sarah, stop," he said. "She's scared. Did you see her face? Something's wrong. She's scared." Sarah spat, tears stinging her eyes. "She doesn't get to be scared. She's the one who ran." Ben didn't argue, just guided her back to the car. As they drove away, Sarah looked back at the cottage, its blue shutters stark against the gray cliffs. Ellen was in there. Hiding. But from what? Or who? Back in 2005, a week before Ellen left, Sarah had caught her mom crying in the kitchen. It was late, the house dark except for a single light over the sink. Ellen sat at the table, a letter in her hand, her shoulders shaking. Sarah, sneaking downstairs for a glass of water, froze in the doorway. "Mom," she whispered.
Ellen startled.
Shoving the letter into her pocket. "Sarah, honey, what are you doing up?" "You're crying," Sarah said, stepping closer. "What's wrong?" Ellen wiped her eyes, forcing a smile. "Nothing, sweetie. Just a long day. Go back to bed." Sarah didn't push, but she saw the fear in her mom's eyes. The next day, Ellen was back to normal, making pancakes, joking with Ben. But Sarah never forgot that moment. It was the first time she realized her mom was hiding something. Now back in Rockport, Sarah and Ben sat in the car outside Lila's bookstore. Sarah's hands were still shaking, her mind replaying the confrontation. Ellen's tears, her plea to leave. It didn't make sense. Why was she so afraid? What wasn't safe? "We need to talk to Lila again," Sarah said, her voice steadier now. "She knows Clara. Maybe she knows more than she let on." Ben nodded, though he looked drained. "Yeah, but Sarah, what if Mom's telling the truth? What if it's not safe for us to dig?" Sarah met his eyes, her resolve hardening. "Then we find out why. I'm not leaving until I do." They got out of the car. The bookstore's warm light spilling onto the street. Lila was inside, and Sarah had a feeling she held the key to unlocking Clara Wells' secrets. One way or another, the truth was coming out. The bell above the door of Lila's pages jingled as Sarah and Ben stepped inside, the warmth of the bookstore a stark contrast to the chilly Maine afternoon. The smell of old books and lavender wrapped around them, and the tabby cat on the windowsill flicked its tail, watching them with lazy curiosity. Lila looked up from the counter, her silver braid catching the light. "Back so soon," she said, her smile faltering as she saw their faces. "Everything all right?" Sarah's hands were still trembling from the confrontation at Ellen's cottage, her mom's words. "It's not safe," looping in her mind. She forced a calm tone. "We just saw Clara Wells. At her place. We need to talk." Lila's eyes narrowed, but she didn't press. "Come on back," she said, gesturing to a small table near the fiction section. "I'll make tea." Ben shot Sarah a look that said, "This is your show," and they followed Lila. The bookstore was quiet, just a couple of customers browsing in the corner. Lila set a teapot and 3 mugs on the table, her reporter instincts kicking in. "We know she's not just Clara Wells. Her real name is Ellen Harper. She's our mom. She left us 20 years ago, and now she's here, acting like we're strangers. She said it's not safe for us to be around her." "What does that mean, Lila? What do you know?" Lila's hand paused mid-pour, her expression unreadable. She set the teapot down and leaned back, studying them. "You're her kids," she said softly, not a question. "I always wondered if she had family out there. She never talked about it, but there was a sadness in her, like she was carrying a ghost." Ben leaned forward, his voice gentle. "Lila, we're not here to cause trouble. We just want to understand why she left. If you know anything at all, please tell us." Lila sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "Clara's been my friend for years. She showed up in Rockport about 15 years ago, renting that cottage by the cliffs. Said she needed a fresh start. I didn't pry, she's private and I respect that. But I've seen her flinch at certain names, certain cars pulling into town. Like she's waiting for something to catch up with her." Sarah's pulse quickened. Did she ever mention Ohio? Or a family? A husband named Tom, kids named Sarah and Ben? Lila shook her head. "No specifics." Once, after a glass of wine, she said she'd done something unforgivable to protect the people she loved. "I didn't push her. But..." She hesitated, then stood. "Wait here." She disappeared into a back room, leaving Sarah and Ben in tense silence. Sarah's mind raced. Unforgivable. Protect the people she loved. Was that about them? Had Ellen left to keep them safe? Like she'd hinted at the cottage? The idea felt impossible, but it gnawed at her. Lila returned with a small leather-bound notebook, its edges worn. "Clara left this here a few years ago, when she was helping me reorganize the store. I found it behind some boxes. Meant to give it back, but she never asked for it, and I didn't want to upset her. It's a journal, I think. I haven't read it, felt too personal. But if you're her kids, maybe it's yours to see." Sarah's hands shook as she took the journal. It was heavy. Not just with paper but with the weight of what it might hold. Ben leaned closer, his eyes wide. "You think it's hers?" he whispered. "It's hers," Sarah said, her voice certain. She opened it. The pages yellowed but neat, filled with Ellen's familiar handwriting. The same looping script from the note that had haunted Sarah for 20 years. The first entry was dated 2006, a year after Ellen left. Lila stood. "I'll give you some privacy. Take your time." As Lila busied herself at the counter, Sarah began to read, her voice low so only Ben could hear. Journal entry. March 12, 2006. "I've been Clara Wells for 6 months now. It still feels like a lie, but it's the only way. Rockport is quiet, the kind of place where no one asks too many questions. I paint every day, the ocean my only friend. But every night I see their faces, Tom, Sarah, Ben. My babies. Sarah would be 13 now, probably angry, asking questions I can't answer. Ben's 9. Maybe still singing those silly songs I taught him. I left to keep them safe, but God, it hurts. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. I was Elise Vaughn once, a name I buried long ago. That life, money, power, lies, it wasn't me. I ran at 18, became Ellen, built a new world with Tom. But Daniel found me. My brother. He's still out there, still chasing the fortune I refused. If he knew where I was, he'd come for me. Worse, he'd come for them. Leaving was the only way to keep his eyes on me, not my family. I pray it's enough." Sarah stopped, her throat tight. "Elise Vaughn," she whispered. "Who's that?" Ben's face was pale. She said Daniel. Her brother? Mom never talked about a brother. Sarah flipped to another entry, dated 2008. Journal entry. July 19, 2008. "I saw a girl today, maybe 15, with Sarah's smile. It broke me. I wanted to call home to hear their voices, but I can't. Daniel's still looking. I got a letter last month. No return address, just his handwriting. You can't hide forever, Elise. I burned it. The money he wants, the Vaughn fortune, it's blood money. I won't touch it. I won't let it touch my kids. Tom must hate me, but he's strong. He'll keep them safe. I have to believe that. Sarah's hands trembled as she closed the journal, her eyes burning. Ellen hadn't just left, she'd been running. From a brother, from a past, from something called the Vaughn fortune. The words blood money echoed in her mind, heavy with danger. Ben rubbed his face, his voice shaky. This is a lot. She left to protect us? From some guy named Daniel? Why didn't she tell Dad? Why not go to the cops? I don't know, Sarah said, her voice hoarse. But she was scared. You heard her today. It's not safe. Maybe this Daniel guy is still out there. They sat in silence, the journal between them like a ticking bomb. Sarah's anger, so sharp at the cottage, was crumbling, replaced by a tangle of confusion and pity. Her mom wasn't just a runaway. She was a fugitive, hiding from a life Sarah had never known. Back in 2005, 2 days before Ellen left, Sarah had found her mom in the backyard of their Ohio house, staring at the stars. It was late, the air cool, and Ellen was wrapped in a blanket, her face pale. Mom, what are you doing out here? Sarah asked, hugging herself against the chill. Ellen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just thinking, sweetie, about how big the world is. You ever wonder who you'd be if you could start over? Sarah frowned. Like a new name? Something like that, Ellen said softly. She pulled Sarah close, kissing her forehead. No matter what. I love you. You and Ben and your dad. Always. Sarah hadn't known what to say. She'd felt her mom's arms tremble, but she didn't ask why. 2 days later, Ellen was gone. Now in the bookstore. Lila returned, her eyes gentle but searching. Find what you needed? Sarah clutched the journal, her voice unsteady. This is hers. It's a lot. Lila, did Clara ever mention someone named Daniel? Or a past she was running from? Lila's face tightened just for a moment. Not by name. But she'd get jumpy sometimes, like she was watching her back. Once, a man came by the gallery asking about her. Big guy, rough voice. She wasn't there, thank God, but I told him I didn't know any Clara. She was shaken when I told her. Never saw him again. Sarah's stomach dropped. When was this? 3, maybe 4 years ago, Lila said. She's been more careful since. Ben leaned forward. Lila, we need to know what she's afraid of. If she's in trouble, we want to help. Lila hesitated, then nodded. I don't know much, but I'll tell you what I can. Clara's good people, but she's carried a heavy load. Fear her kids. She'd want you safe. Maybe that's why she pushed you away today. Sarah's mind spun. Daniel. Fortune. A past Ellen had buried. The journal was only a piece of the puzzle, but it was enough to change everything. Her mom wasn't a heartless runaway. She was a woman on the run, sacrificing her family to protect them. But from what? And why was it still not safe? We need to talk to her again, Sarah said, standing. Tomorrow. But this time we're not leaving without answers. Ben looked at the journal, his expression torn. Sarah, what if she's right? What if digging makes things worse? Then we deal with it, Sarah said, her voice firm. She's our mom, Ben. We deserve the truth. Lila watched them, her eyes soft with understanding. Be careful, she said. Clara, Ellen, she's strong, but she's fragile too. Whatever she's running from, it's not small. Sarah nodded, tucking the journal into her bag. The weight of it felt like a promise or a warning. As they left the bookstore, the main sky was darkening, clouds rolling in from the sea. A storm was coming, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into one too. The rain started as Sarah and Ben left Lila's pages, a soft drizzle that turned the cobblestones of Rockport's main street slick and shiny. Sarah clutched Ellen's journal inside her jacket, its leather cover warm against her chest. The entries they'd read, Ellen's life as Elise Vaughn, her fear of her brother Daniel, the blood money she'd fled, had turned Sarah's world upside down. Her mom wasn't just a runaway. She was a woman haunted by a past that still had claws. And now that past felt closer than ever. Ben walked beside her, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his face troubled. So what's the plan, Sarah? We go back to Mom's cottage tomorrow and what? Show her the journal? Demand she spill everything? Sarah's jaw tightened. She's been lying for 20 years, Ben. She doesn't get to keep hiding. We show her the journal, make her explain who Daniel is, what this fortune is about. No more excuses. Ben stopped under a street lamp, the rain catching in his hair. You heard what she said. It's not safe. What if this Daniel guy is bad news? Like really bad news? Lila said some creepy dude was asking about her years ago. What if that was him? Then we need to know, Sarah said, her voice sharp. If she's in danger, we can help. But we can't do that if she keeps shutting us out. Ben shook his head, his voice low. Sarah, you're acting like this is one of your newsroom exposés. This is Mom. She's scared. And pushing her might make things worse. Maybe we should call Dad. Tell him what's going on.
No, Sarah snapped.
Dad gave up on her years ago. He'll just tell us to come home. I'm not leaving until I get answers. Ben's eyes searched hers. And for a moment, he looked older than his 28 years. I want answers too. But I don't want to lose her again. Or you. Just think about it, okay? Sarah didn't answer. She turned and kept walking toward their motel, the rain soaking her sneakers. Ben followed, the silence between them heavy. She knew he was right. She was pushing hard, maybe too hard. But the journal had cracked open a door to the truth, and she couldn't stop now. Not when they were so close. They checked into a small motel on the edge of Rockport, a no-frills place with faded curtains and a neon vacancy sign. Their room smelled faintly of salt air and cleaning spray, and the single window overlooked the harbor, where fishing boats rocked in the storm. Sarah sat on one of the twin beds, the journal open in her lap, rereading the entries. Ben sprawled on the other bed, strumming his guitar softly, the notes a quiet backdrop to the rain tapping the window. You think she's still awake? Ben asked, his fingers pausing on the strings. Mom, I mean. Wonder if she's freaking out, knowing we found her. Sarah's eyes stayed on the journal. She should be. She can't just pretend we don't exist. Ben set the guitar down, his voice careful. Sarah, I get why you're mad. I do. But those journal entries, she sounds like she didn't want to leave. Like she thought she had no choice. Sarah's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to cling to her anger. But the words in the journal kept echoing. I left to keep them safe. If she had no choice, why not tell us? Why not trust Dad? We were her family, Ben. I don't know, he admitted. But I'm starting to think she was protecting us from something big. Something we're stirring up by being here. Before Sarah could respond, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. You're in Rockport. Leave now, or you'll regret it. Her stomach dropped. She showed the screen to Ben, whose face went pale. Who the hell is that? He whispered. Sarah's reporter instincts kicked in. Could be a prank. Or... She didn't finish, but the name hung between them. Daniel. She typed a reply, who is this? But it bounced back undelivered. Blocked. Okay, that's creepy, Ben said, standing. We need to tell someone. Lila, maybe. Or the cops. Not yet, Sarah said. Her voice steady despite her racing heart. We don't know enough. It could be nothing. Nothing. Ben's voice rose. Sarah, someone knows we're here. And Mom's already freaked out. This isn't a game. I know it's not, she shot back. But running to the cops with a vague text and a 20-year-old mystery isn't gonna help. We talk to Mom tomorrow, show her the journal, and get the truth. Then we decide what to do. Ben stared at her, then shook his head. You're stubborn as hell, you know that? Takes one to know one, Sarah said, managing a weak smile. But as she turned back to the journal, the text burned in her mind. Someone was watching, and they didn't want her digging. The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving Rockport sparkling under a clear sky. Sarah and Ben grabbed coffee and drove back to Main Street, the journal tucked in Sarah's bag. Their plan was to check the gallery first, see if Ellen was there, then head to her cottage if needed. But as they parked near seaside brushstrokes, Sarah noticed a man across the street, leaning against a black SUV. He was in his 60s, tall and broad, with a gray buzz cut and a face like weathered stone. He was watching the gallery, his eyes cold and focused. Ben, Sarah whispered, nudging him. That guy. He's staring at the gallery. Ben followed her gaze, his expression tightening. Looks like bad news. You think? Maybe, Sarah said, her heart pounding. Let's keep an eye on him. They stayed in the car, pretending to check their phones. The man lit a cigarette, his movements slow, deliberate. After a few minutes, he crossed the street and entered the gallery.
Zaraz gut twisted.
We need to get in there, she said, grabbing her bag.
Ben hesitated.
Sarah, if that's Daniel, we're walking into trouble. We don't even know what he wants. Exactly, she said, opening the car door. And we won't unless we find out. Come on. Inside the gallery, the air was cool and quiet, the paintings glowing under soft lights. Ellen wasn't there. Only a young clerk arranging brochures. The man from the SUV stood near a seascape, his back to them. But his presence filled the room like a storm cloud. Sarah's skin prickled. She pulled Ben toward a corner, whispering, "Act normal. Browse." They moved through the gallery, stealing glances at the man. He didn't approach the clerk, just studied the paintings, his eyes lingering on one sign, "C. Wells." After a few minutes, he left without a word, climbing into his SUV and driving off. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That was him, wasn't it? Ben said, his voice low. Daniel. I don't know, Sarah admitted. But he's looking for her. We need to warn Mom. They drove to Ellen's cottage. The cliffs stark against the blue sky. The bike was still on the porch, but the windows were dark. Sarah knocked, her heart in her throat, but no one answered. She tried again, harder, then peered through a window. The living room was empty, a half-finished painting on an easel. She's not here, Ben said, his voice tense. Maybe she's at the gallery by now. Or what if she ran again? Sarah's stomach sank. The thought of Ellen disappearing again was unbearable. She wouldn't, she said, but doubt crept in. Let's check the gallery again. If she's not there, we go back to Lila. As they turned to leave, Sarah noticed a car parked down the road. A black SUV, half hidden by trees. The same one from town. Her blood ran cold.
Ben,
she whispered, grabbing his arm. He's here. Ben followed her gaze, his face paling. What do we do? Sarah's mind raced. The journal, the text, the man in the SUV, it was all connected. Daniel, or whoever he was closing in on Ellen. And now on them. We stick together, she said, her voice firm. We find Mom and we get answers. No matter what. Ben nodded, but his eyes were scared. This is getting real, Sarah. Real fast. I know, she said, gripping the journal tighter. But we're Harpers. We don't back down. The black SUV was still parked down the road from Ellen's cottage, its dark shape half hidden by the pines, like a predator waiting to strike. Sarah's heart raced as she and Ben crouched behind a cluster of bushes, the journal clutched tightly in her hands. The main sky was heavy with clouds, the air thick with the promise of another storm. They'd driven back to the cottage after finding it empty, hoping to catch Ellen before the man from the gallery. Daniel, they were sure, did. But now, seeing his car, Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. Ben's voice was a tense whisper. We can't just sit here, Sarah. If that's him and Mom's inside. I know, Sarah said, her mind spinning. The text from last night, leave now or you'll regret it, flashed in her head. Daniel knew they were here and he was closing in. We go in. Quietly. If she's there, we get her out. Ben's eyes widened. And if he's already in there? Then we call the cops, Sarah said, pulling out her phone. But not until we know what's happening. Come on. They crept toward the cottage, staying low, the wildflowers brushing their jeans. The bike was still on the porch, and a faint light glowed through the living room window. Someone was home. Sarah's pulse pounded as she reached the door, her hand hovering over the knob. She glanced at Ben, who nodded, his face pale but set. She turned the knob, and to her relief it was unlocked. The door creaked open, revealing the cozy living room. A couch, a coffee table, the half-finished painting on its easel. Ellen stood by the fireplace, her back to them, her shoulders tense. She was holding a phone, her voice low and urgent. Lila, I need you to. She froze, turning as Sarah and Ben stepped inside. Her hazel eyes widened, a mix of fear and frustration. What are you doing here? She hissed, hanging up the phone. I told you to leave. Before Sarah could answer, a heavy knock shook the door. Ellen's face went white. Get out, she whispered, pointing to the back door. Now. But it was too late. The front door swung open, and the man from the gallery stepped in. He was taller than Sarah expected. His gray buzz cut stark against his weathered face. His eyes, cold and sharp, locked onto Ellen. "Elise," he said, his voice low, almost amused. "Been a long time." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Daniel." It had to be him. Ben grabbed her arm, pulling her back, but she stood her ground, the journal heavy in her hands. Ellen, Clara, Elise straightened, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Daniel, you shouldn't be here." "Neither should they," Daniel said, nodding at Sarah and Ben. "Your kids, right? They've been poking around, asking questions." "Bad move, Elise." "Don't call her that," Sarah snapped, stepping forward. "And don't threaten us." "Who are you?" Daniel's lips curled into a smirk. "She didn't tell you? I'm her brother. Family reunion, huh?" Ellen's voice cut through sharp. "Leave them out of this, Daniel. They have nothing to do with it." "Oh, they're in it now," Daniel said, his tone darkening. He took a step closer, his bulk filling the room. "You've been hiding for 20 years, sis. I'm done waiting. The Vaughn fortune, $20 million, sitting in a trust you locked away. I want it. Sign it over. Or I make sure everyone knows who you really are. Starting with them." Sarah's mind raced, piecing together the journal's clues. The Vaughn fortune. Blood money. Ellen's fear. "You're blackmailing her," she said, her reporter's instincts kicking in. "What is this money? Why's it worth all this?" Daniel's eyes flicked to her, sizing her up. Smart girl. The Vaughns were, let's say, connected. Business wasn't always clean. Elise was supposed to inherit, but she ran. Thought she could disappear. But family doesn't let go that easy. "Enough," Ellen said, her voice breaking. She turned to Sarah and Ben, her eyes pleading. "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to know this. I was Elise Vaughn, yes. My family, they were criminals. I left that life at 18, changed my name, met your dad. I thought I was free. But Daniel found me in 2005. He wanted the money. Said he'd hurt you if I didn't give it up. So I ran. To keep you safe." Sarah's breath caught. The journal had hinted at this, but hearing it from her mom's lips was different. It was real. Ben's hand tightened on her arm, his voice shaky. "You left us to protect us?" Ellen nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I thought if I drew him away, he'd leave you alone. I redirected the trust to you two, locked until now. I never touched it. It's yours. But he can't have it." Daniel laughed, a harsh sound. "Noble Elise. But I'm not asking anymore." He pulled a folded document from his jacket, tossing it on the coffee table. "Sign it over. Or I go public. Your kids' lives, her fancy reporter job, his little music gigs gone. Everyone'll know they're tied to the Vaughn name." Sarah's anger flared. "You think you can scare us? I'm a journalist. I'll expose you first." Daniel's smirk faded, his eyes narrowing. "Careful, girl. You don't know what I'm capable of." Ben stepped forward, his voice steady despite his fear. "Get out. Now. Or we call the cops." Daniel's hand twitched toward his jacket, and Sarah's heart stopped. Did he have a weapon? But before she could react, Ellen grabbed the fireplace poker. Her voice fierce. "Leave, Daniel. You're not taking anything from me. Not anymore." The room froze, the air thick with tension. Sarah's eyes darted to her phone, her thumb hovering over 911. But then a new voice broke the silence, Lila's calm but firm from the doorway. "I called the police. They're 2 minutes out. I suggest you go, sir." Daniel's face twisted with rage. But the distant wail of sirens stopped him cold. He glared at Ellen, then Sarah and Ben. "This isn't over," he spat, shoving past Lila and disappearing into the rain. Sarah let out a shaky breath, her legs wobbling. Ellen dropped the poker, sinking onto the couch, her face buried in her hands. Lila closed the door, her expression soft but resolute. "You okay, Clara Ellen?" Ellen didn't answer, just sobbed quietly. Sarah stood rooted, the journal still in her hands, her anger and relief crashing together. Ben knelt beside their mom, his voice gentle. "Mom, it's okay. He's gone." Ellen looked up, her eyes red. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I thought I could keep you safe by staying away. But I was wrong. I should have trusted you, trusted your dad." Sarah's throat tightened. She wanted to stay mad, to scream about the years of pain. But seeing her mom so broken softened something inside her. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice cracking. "We could have helped." Ellen shook her head. "I was ashamed. The Vaughns, my family, was poison. I wanted you to have a clean life, not their shadow." Lila stepped forward, her voice kind. "Ellen, you did what you thought was right. But these kids, they're strong. They found you. Let them in now." Ellen nodded, wiping her tears. "The trust, it's yours. I set it up for you and Ben for when you were older. It's clean, I made sure. Use it for something good." Sarah looked at Ben, who gave a small nod. "We will," she said, her voice steadier. "But we need you, Mom. Not the money." Ellen's sob caught in her throat, and she reached for them. Ben hugged her first, his arms tight, and Sarah hesitated, then joined. The three of them clinging to each other as the sirens grew louder outside. The rain had stopped by the time the police arrived at Ellen's cottage, their flashing lights painting the cliffs in red and blue. Daniel was gone, his black SUV vanishing into the storm. But the officers took Ellen's statement, promising to track him down. Sarah stood on the porch, watching the patrol cars pull away, the journal still tucked under her arm. Inside, Ellen sat on the couch, her face pale but calmer, while Ben and Lila talked quietly by the fireplace. The confrontation with Daniel had shaken them all, but it had also cracked open the truth, raw and real. Sarah stepped back inside, her sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. Ellen looked up, her hazel eyes searching Sarah's face. "I'm so sorry," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant for you to get hurt." Sarah's chest tightened. She'd spent 20 years hating her mom, building walls around the pain of that crumpled note. "I have to go. I'm sorry." But now, knowing Ellen had left to protect them from Daniel, from the Vaughn family's shadow, those walls were crumbling. Anger still lingered, but it was softer, tangled with the longing for the mom she'd lost. Ben sat beside Ellen, his hand on her shoulder. "You did what you thought was right, Mom. We get that now. But you're not alone anymore." Sarah hesitated, then sat across from them, the journal in her lap. "Why didn't you tell Dad?" she asked, her voice steady but raw. "He could have helped. We could have faced this together." Ellen's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to. But Tom, he was so good, so honest. I was ashamed of who I'd been. Elise Vaughn tied to a family like that. I thought if I told him, he'd look at me differently. And if Daniel came for us, I couldn't let him hurt you. Leaving felt like the only way." Sarah nodded slowly, the weight of her mom's words settling in. She glanced at Ben, who gave her a small, encouraging smile. "We read your journal," she said, sliding it across the coffee table. "You wrote about us. About keeping us safe. All this time. You were watching, weren't you?"
Ellenes breszhítsd.
"I tried to stay away, but I couldn't. I went to your high school graduation, Sarah, in the back of the auditorium. I saw your band play in Cleveland, Ben, hiding in the crowd. I read every article you wrote, Sarah. I was so proud, but I was so scared. If Daniel knew you were mine, he'd use you to get to me." Ben's voice was soft. "You don't have to be scared anymore. He's gone and we're here." Sarah's throat burned. She wanted to stay guarded, to hold on to the hurt, but her mom's trembling hands, her tear-streaked face broke something loose. "I missed you," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "Every day I missed you." Ellen sobbed, reaching for her. Sarah let herself be pulled into the hug, Ben's arms wrapping around them both. For the first time in 20 years, the Harpers were together, broken but mending. Lila watched from the doorway, her eyes glistening, a quiet smile on her face. Over the next few days, Sarah and Ben stayed in Rockport, piecing together their next steps. The police had issued a warrant for Daniel, tracking his SUV to a nearby town, but he'd slipped away. Ellen wasn't worried. She said he'd always been a coward, running when the heat was on. The trust, $20 million locked away for Sarah and Ben, was real, verified by a lawyer Lila recommended. It was clean, Ellen insisted, redirected years ago to escape the Vaughn family's taint. Sarah and Ben sat with Ellen at her cottage one evening, the sea crashing outside. "What do we do with it?" Sarah asked, the idea of millions still surreal. It's a lot. Ben strummed his guitar absently, thinking. Something good, like you said. Maybe something for Rockport. This place gave you a home, Mom. We could give back. Ellen's eyes lit up. There's a community center in town. They've been trying to rebuild it, add an arts program. Kids here don't have much. Painting, music, it could change things for them. Sarah nodded, a spark of purpose igniting. An arts center. Named after you, maybe. Not Clara Wells, Ellen Harper. Ellen shook her head, blushing.
No.
Just something for the town. For the future. They agreed to fund the center. With enough left to secure Ellen's life in Rockport and support Sarah and Ben's dreams. Her reporting, his music. But more than the money, they wanted their mom back. Ellen promised to visit Ohio, to rebuild with Tom, to be part of their lives again. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a start. Sarah called their dad that night, her hands shaking as she dialed. Tom's voice was gruff but warm. Sarah, you okay? Dad, we found Mom, she said, her voice breaking. She's in Maine. She's coming home. There was a long pause, then a choked sound, like Tom was fighting tears. Tell me everything, he said. She did, and when she hung up, she felt lighter, like a weight she'd carried since she was 12 had lifted. November 2026, Millfield, Ohio. The Harper house smelled like turkey and pumpkin pie. The dining table set for 5. Thanksgiving was always a big deal growing up. But this year, it was different. Ellen was there. Her blonde hair streaked with more gray. Her smile nervous but real. Tom sat beside her, his hand brushing hers, their connection tentative but growing. Sarah and Ben were across from them, bickering over who carved the turkey better, while Lila, who'd driven from Maine, laughed and passed the mashed potatoes. The house hadn't changed much, same creaky floors, same porch swing, but it felt fuller, alive in a way it hadn't since 2005. Sarah looked around, her heart swelling. She'd spent so long chasing answers, so long angry, but now here they were. Not perfect, not fixed, but together. Ellen raised her glass, her voice steady. To family, she said. To second chances. To family, they echoed, glasses clinking. Sarah met her mom's eyes. And for the first time, she didn't see Clara Wells or Elise Vaughn. She saw Ellen Harper, her mom, flaws and all. Later, as they cleared the table, Ben pulled Sarah aside, his grin wide. You did good, sis. You found her. We found her, Sarah corrected, nudging him. Team Harper, right? He laughed, slinging an arm around her. Outside, the Ohio sky was clear. Stars winking above the old house. Sarah thought of the note still in her wallet, its words no longer a wound but a reminder of how far they'd come. The truth had been painful, but it had brought them home.